Hello everyone, welcome to my channel or welcome back. Here doing something different, doing something that is not wax. I am going to talk about everything that I read in January. So I mentioned in one of my other videos I've been a little bit less focused on my wax lately, and one of the things that has been sort of pulling me away from that is that I have gotten back into reading. So since December, I used to be a big reader when I was younger, but I just sort of stopped. And my reading mostly consisted of sort of over the last 10 years of doing reread upon reread of the A Song of Ice and Fire, like everything that nearly everything that George R.R. Martin's ever written. So yeah, not a huge amount of variety. But in December, I picked up Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, which if you're in the reading world, I'm sure you've heard of those. And while they weren't the best books on the planet, they just got me really excited and interested in reading again. So since then, I've pushed through a lot more than I thought I would. I read 13 books, or 12, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 books in January. So let's talk about them. The first thing that I read, so there is going to be a lot of Sarah J. Maas in this video because I did the Iron Flame Fourth Wing duo in December, and then it feels like a bit of a natural pipeline then to get into Sarah J. Maas. And because I knew she had a new book coming out on January 30th, which I have already read, but that will be my February summary, I really wanted to try to get through as much of that as possible. And in January as well, I had a lot of holidays and leave and stuff. So I don't think I will probably not read as much in future months as I did in January. I just had the time and the space and the motivation to do it. So the first book that I finished in January is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. So this is the last book in the ACOTAR, or A Court of Thorns and Roses series. This one focuses on, so the first few books focus on a character called Feyre. This one focuses on her sister Nesta, and one of the other characters, Cassian. So this one, I will try my best to not do spoilers in these videos, but I'm not very practiced at it, so I can't guarantee. Anyway, this one I found, it's not my favorite book of the series. It was good. I found it was a bit long for what it was. It's the longest book in the ACOTAR series. I think it's like close to 800 pages. And I just thought that for the ground that it covers, it was a bit long. I think some people don't like this one because they don't like Nesta. She is a very difficult character, particularly when you read about her from other people's point of views. But this book really focuses on her journey. She's gone through a lot of trauma in her life, and so there's a lot of her sort of working her way through that, making new connections, friends, etc. So I actually loved the premise of the book. I loved the story. I really loved Nesta's growth. I just found it was a bit long. At times I felt like I was having to push myself to finish it. And I think the biggest thing that that held me back being absolutely in love with this book is that most of the twists, I suppose, just that I predict, like, and this doesn't normally happen with Sarah J. Maas books, but I found that I predicted most of the things that happened in this book, or something approximate to it. There was no real big surprises in this book, which is one of the things I love about Sarah J. Maas, is there's normally big surprises. So yeah, this one, it was good. I think I rated it 4 stars. I love pretty much everything Sarah J. Maas has written. So I've only got 1.25 more to go before I've read everything. All of her made to 16. I think she may have written some stuff before that, but she's got 16 major books that everyone goes wild about across 3 series, and I've only got 1.25 left to go. So yeah, 4 stars. Did really enjoy it, but there are other books that she's written and other books in the ACOTAR series that I preferred. I did decide to take a little Sarah J. Maas break after I read that one. So and at the time it was because I thought that there was no chance I'd get through everything Sarah J. Maas before the new Crescent City book came out on January 30th. If I hadn't taken this little side break, I actually possibly could have made it. But it is what it is. Anyway, so I did, by Rebecca Ross, I did Divine Rivals and I did Ruthless Vows. So these are YA books. They are about two people, Iris Winnow and Roman Kitt, and their romance, I guess. It's set in a world, there's a mystical war. They're both journalists and they are rivals for a columnist role at a newspaper. And then without knowing it, they start communicating via a magic typewriter. It's really lovely. It's a really, I don't want to say well written, but the writing is really lovely, I guess. And I liked the world. There wasn't enough development of it for me. The romance and the rivalry in particular fell really flat. It did not feel, it felt kind of forced. It just did not feel, it didn't resonate. Yeah. So, and given that this one in particular is so focused on that romance, this book just, it was nice and there were elements of it that I really enjoyed, but overall it was a bit flat. So I gave this one 3 stars. I really did enjoy the scenes, you know, when they go out into the battlefield, I suppose, or out into the front, and the way that was described and the characters and all of that. I really enjoyed that side of things. I am definitely more of a plot person than I am a romance person. So if a book is more driven by the romance than the plot, I'm not going to like it as much. But it was nice. It was an easy read. I got through it quite quickly. So yeah, 3 stars. It was good, but it wasn't like anything mind-blowing. Ruthless Vows I preferred. I think I gave this like a, technically I gave it 4 stars, but I think it's more like a 3.75. I did prefer this one because while the romance was still there, it was less heavy on the romance. It was a lot more focused on the plot. Some of the things that didn't make sense to me in this one that I felt like loose ends or not really taken care of. They were somewhat addressed in here. I'd say still not, things like the way the magic worked and stuff, I still feel like wasn't explained enough, but it at least got some form of an answer for it in here. What I really liked about this one was the characters, the side characters. I feel like there was quite a few really beautiful side characters that were introduced or built on further from book 1 to book 2. And honestly, I found their stories and their actions to be more interesting and engaging than the main characters. So, which is never a great sign for a book, but in this one, like, I was more interested. I was more, there were more moments where I was, you know, taken aback. Like, it was just really a better book, a more engaging book all round. So both of those books, I definitely recommend them, especially if you do like sort of YA simple type romances, then I think they are good for that. So then I went back into my Sarah J Maas. I couldn't decide. Once I finished ACOTAR, I was at a bit of a crossing point. It was either me start the Throne of Glass series, which I have here, and try to get through all of that, and then the Crescent City books, and then read Crescent City 3. I knew if I took that path, I would not be reading the Crescent City 3 book until I probably still wouldn't be at it. So I decided that I wanted to do, and I know not everybody recommends this, although so far I think it's absolutely fine. I decided to do the 2 Crescent City books that were out at the time. So the first one is A House of Earth and Blood. This one is a 5-star read for me. This is my favourite Sarah J Maas book. This one just has my whole heart. It absolutely blew me away from start to finish. I think the reason I love this one so much, it immediately struck me as an elder millennial as being, I am immediately, as soon as I entered the world, which is like it's an urban fantasy, it's a city, you know, they have technology, they have, it is a fantasy world, but they have all of the modern things that we would have. And it's a mix of different, like fantasy creatures, I suppose. So there's fae, there's angels, there's shapeshifters, there's vampires, there's all sorts, all in the one place. And for some reason that just immediately reminded me of the show Angel. So Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, where, you know, they're in LA and there's all sorts of creatures and stuff. It just immediately made me feel reminiscent of that. And Bryce in particular, she does have, I don't want to say Buffy vibes, and even on the front it says, think Game of Thrones meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer with a drizzle of E.L. James. Like, I don't want to say that I think Bryce is like Buffy, but it just, I don't know, it took me back there. So I felt like that really helped me to immerse in the world straight away and understand it. The other TV show from my, I want to say my youth, I suppose, that I really loved that this had vibes of was Veronica Mars. Obviously, Veronica Mars not being supernatural fantasy or anything like that, but just the two best friends solving a mystery, etc. Like, it just, so because those were just how I grew up, I just so felt at home in this book like crazy. And I know a lot of people say that like the first 100 pages and stuff, they find it chaotic and crazy and there's so much to catch up on and it's so hard to kind of get a read on, like, an understanding of what's going on. I didn't have that because I just feel like I had that background. So absolutely loved it. The storyline had me hooked the whole way through, the characters, everything. Sometimes I do find with the Sarah J Maas books that I just find that when they're very character focused books, I find there's not enough going on, but I really find with these ones that they are just so, she finds a plot twist, even if it's small, to inject into just about every chapter. Like, it keeps you going, and I really, really, really love that about this book. So this one was 5 stars. Yeah, can't say enough good things about that one. Then I read the next one, so House of Sky and Breath. My copy is, I took it camping with me and I accidentally left it out, so it's not too bad, but it's a bit like crunchy on the back. So House of Sky and Breath, this one I think I did like 4.75 out of 5, or maybe 4.5, I can't remember. Anyway, I did really enjoy this one. I didn't like it quite as much as House of Earth and Blood. I think House of Earth and Blood just had that benefit of being the first one and it just absolutely entranced me. This one, it was really good. I loved the story. I loved the ending. A lot of people adore this one because the ending is just so crazy. And yes, I did love that, but I just remember I had this sense the whole way through this book of feeling like they were all just, for very smart people, some of them, they were just absolutely sleepwalking into a trap and making all of these plans that just didn't make sense. And it was frustrating the life out of me. So that was probably my biggest complaint about this book, was I was just like, you know, like shouting in my head, like, what are you doing? And yeah, so bad things happen, basically. But yeah, still loved it, still love the world, still love the pace. It doesn't slow down, it keeps going. She really just, you know, I feel like in some of her other series, she takes more time to sort of sit and develop and grow the characters. And some people might love that. I find it's a bit slow. I like to have action. I like the characters to develop, but I like there to be enough action to keep me going. And these books definitely have that. So I'll talk about, if I do film another one of these, which I might, I will talk about the third one, The House of Flame and Shadow, in that one, because I finished that on like the 2nd of February, so a couple of days ago. So from there, I went pretty much straight into Throne of Glass, and I started with Assassin's Blade. Now, I know that there are discussions ongoing about the order in which to read these books. So I bought the box set, and this one was the first book in the box set, and it is also, when you look at this page, it is also the first book listed here. So for me, it seemed like a pretty no-brainer. Let's just read it first. The first book is a series of 5 novellas, so it's like a prequel. So I know a lot of people say read it 3rd or 4th because it kind of, they think it gives them like a more emotional kind of reaction to it. Because every single novella in here, the characters or the story is relevant to something else later in the series. So for that, I kind of understand why people say to read it later, but it just made so much sense and the story flowed so smoothly if you start reading this one first. So I still think this is better first. My issue with reading it later in the series is that just about everything in here will be spoiled. You will know every major event, character, plot point, etc. And I feel like I would not have been able to enjoy this book so much if I had already had it spoiled by the other books. So that was kind of my take on the reading order. Anyway, I did really enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars. Each of the stories I like because it is 5 stories. Like, they just get to the point. There's no kind of waffling around. I feel like you get to know the main character Selena and understand some of her motivation, and the way she is, the reasons why she is the way she is, because she can grate on the nerves a little bit. But I feel like this book does sort of help to contextualize some of that. Yeah, so I enjoyed this one quite a bit. Then I did The Throne of Glass. So the first one, this is apparently one of the first major books that Sarah J. Maas had written or published. So there are a few writing quirks in here, a lot of exclamation marks and things that can be a little bit annoying. But overall, I like this story. It is quite simple, particularly when you compare it to some of the later books. But I think it does set things up really well. It's, yeah, it's a nice, easy one to get into. I like that it's not too long. Like, it was just a nice, quick read. Yeah, not much more to say about it, really. She's, you know, she ends up in the castle and she's in a big battle with other assassins. Some of it felt a little bit pointless in a way, like, particularly when you think about, as you read through and sort of see how the storyline progresses, it feels a bit simple, and the motivation for, you know, having this battle to become the king's champion assassin in the first place, particularly when the king didn't like her or want her. I don't know. There's a couple of things you have to suspend belief, or, you know, suspend the skepticalness about a little bit, I think, to kind of really buy into it. But overall, I did really enjoy the story. Crown of Midnight, the next one along. So I know I enjoyed this one, and I decided that I liked it as much as Throne of Glass. I think I rated them both 4. But I feel like I remember one big event that happened in this story, but I don't remember the overall, like, from start to finish, what it was really doing. So, yeah, like, I know it definitely progressed the plot, progressed the evilness that's happening in the building in the world, the, you know, Selena's decisions, all of that kind of stuff. But beyond that, I don't have, like, huge memories of what was going on in here. So it was good. It was 4 star. I mean, that's what I recorded it down as. But yeah, it's one of the ones that I feel like doesn't stick in my memory as doing anything significant. The next one is Heir of Fire. This one I liked, but found very frustrating. It is definitely the gear shift book. It is, well, I mean, I suppose the end of Crown of Midnight into this really just shifts the story from where it started to where it's going. You know, and it represents some really big shifts for particular characters. In some respects, the 2 things that I found frustrating about it, one is that it did feel in parts a bit slow and a bit like a training montage. Like, they're just, you know, to really take Selena, the main character, from one place to another in her journey. I get that, you know, we had to sort of stop and it couldn't just happen, but it just felt a bit, yeah, sometimes it felt like it dragged a little bit. The other thing is this one, a new point of view gets introduced here. And while it is a really important one, and I knew it would be important as I was reading it, otherwise it would not have been introduced, and I knew it would get better in the later books, and it does get better in the later books, but it is so hard to get through in here because it is just so disconnected from everything else in the story so far. There's no overlap. There's no other characters that you've already read about that come into this point of view. It is pretty much I think there is a little bit later, but not to begin with in this book. It is just so hard to get yourself through. Like, I was pushing myself through it because I knew I had to care about it, because I knew it would be important later, not because I was interested at the time. And that, I think, was a big drawback for this book as well. But I did love it. I love the ending. You know, it really ramps up towards the end, which is pretty common with the Sarah J. Maas books. So overall, I did really enjoy it. And I think I still had it as a 4 star, but it did have some of those big drawbacks I felt in terms of the way it was put together. So then I did Queen of Shadows. So Queen of Shadows, I think, has been my favourite Throne of Glass book so far. This one, I just felt right from the start, it had that, like I said, the plot just kept plotting. Like, it just kept moving. There was nothing that held it back. All of the point of views made sense here. So that one that introduced an Heir of Fire that I didn't love, it gets so much better in this book, and it connects and it makes sense, and you just get so much more from it in this book than you did in the last one. This one just kept me riveted from start to finish. So this one, I think I said 4.75 out of 5. Like, this one is so close to being a 5-star, and I really, really enjoyed this one. Did not want to put it down. And then the last one that I've read, there are still 2 that I'm going through. But the last one that I read in January from Throne of Glass is the Empire of Storms book. A lot of people tandem read this one with Tower of Dawn, which is the one that comes after. I decided not to do that for a couple of reasons. One, because firstly, I wanted to experience this book as the author intended, or both books as the author intended. I sort of figured if she meant for us to tandem read, so to read, because the 2 books happen on the same timeline, just in different places. So, but I figured if she wanted us to read them simultaneously, she would have structured the 2 of them and written the 2 of them so that they happened in the same books. She didn't do that. She separated them out. So I felt like to really be able to appreciate each book, I needed to read each book separately. So that's what I did. And so far, I'm glad that that's the approach I took. I think I wouldn't appreciate the next one that I'm reading at the moment, Tower of Dawn, as much if I hadn't done that. The second reason I did it was more for practical reasons. I was actually on holidays. I was in Tasmania, and just the thought of lugging both books around did not appeal to me. So I may do a tandem read when I reread them at some point in the future. Anyway, Empire of Storms, great book. I did like Queen of Shadows slightly more, and I can't even really think of why, because they both had the same really good things going for them. Like, all of the point of views are just absolutely on point. The storyline really just goes, like, there's no laggy moments. It's just, I don't know, I think I just felt slightly more engaged and just like enthralled by Queen of Shadows than I did by Empire of Storms. But that said, the ending of Empire of Storms is crazy. Like, just absolutely leaves you like, what on earth? So absolutely, the ending, I'd say, of Empire of Storms is one of the most powerful. But story from start to finish, I just knew when I was reading it that while I really, really loved this one, I loved Queen of Shadows a little bit more. So I think I said this, I think I rated them the same. I think they're both like a 4.75 to me, but just if I was to rank all of the books from first to last, this one would sit below Queen of Shadows, but still loved it. The last book that I have that I read for the month is not Sarah J. Maas. When I finished Empire of Storms, because I knew it was like one more day before the third Crescent City book came out, I knew I wouldn't finish another Sarah J. Maas book in a day. I didn't want to be partway through one, so I decided to do something that I could read quickly in a day. So I picked up Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This is very different to everything else I read in the month, because I am very much a fantasy reader, I find. I wasn't in my younger days, but I am now. And so this just was different. So this is a romance and a comedy, I suppose. It's about 2 serial killers who basically fall in love. It gets really great review. Like, I've seen a lot of videos on TikTok where people absolutely rave about this book, and that's why I picked it up. I think if you are coming from the perspective of being someone who loves romance and romance stories, but you want something a bit different, a bit darker, and you're not squeamish, that's probably quite important. I definitely recommend reading the triggers and the content warnings. But if you're not squeamish and you're looking for a romance that's a bit different, I think you would love this one. Like, it is funny, like genuinely some very entertaining scenes in here. But overall, I felt it was a very simple, bland, uneventful romance story that had this kind of serial killer element shoehorned in. Like, it didn't, the romance and the fact that they were serial killers and the events that happen because of that and this competition that they have between themselves just felt like the two things just didn't connect. So I think I rated this one like at 3. You know, it would have been lower if it hadn't been for the fact that some of the scenes just really entertained me. But I genuinely think that part of that's just simple romance stories in contemporary settings just they're not my cup of tea. They're just not what I'm looking for. So I already had a feeling I knew that. I thought that because this was a bit different with the whole serial killer aspect that I would like it more. But it didn't quite hit. But yeah, it is, like I said, if you like romance, you know, you like things to be a bit dark, you like them to be funny, and you like a simple, quick read, then definitely I would recommend this one. I still will read the next, there's another one coming up this year, I think, called Leather and Lark, and then I think there might be a third one as well. I still will read it, particularly if it's nice, short and sweet like this, but yeah, not really my thing. Okay, so that is everything I read in January. I am, like I said, I've read Crescent City 3. I'm currently reading Tower of Dawn, so I'm currently working on finishing the Throne of Glass series. After that, I have Kingdom of Ash, which is quite a chunky book. And then from that, I don't know. I've bought a lot of books. I've definitely sort of diverted my spending from wax and whatever else I was doing hobby-wise onto books. So I might do... There's a new book that's arrived. I can't remember the author's name, but it's called Feybound, and it sounds really interesting. I do feel like with how much time I've spent, 16 books of Sarah J. Maas, I need to do some not necessarily short books, but just things that are like only 1-2 books max, no big series or anything like that for a little bit. So, but I don't really have a clue where my reading list will go. So I guess if I film one of these for February, you'll find out then. So yeah, I hope you guys are all doing really well. I'll talk to you all again soon. Bye.